Peace and love. This is your girl, Karina Dean, aka Eye of Karina, and I'm back to demystify another aspect of astrology. I am your go-to for breaking it down in the most simplest terms. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about defining and identifying the aspects in a chart that would showcase daddy issues. Now, for all of my girls out there, sometimes we get into some love problems, and the way that you can actually target what is going on is based off of your relationship with the father. And that's where astrology comes in. Astrology can show you what is the conflicted relationship and what is the psychological healing even that needs to occur for this to be something that you shine remarkably in. So let's get into it. Well, in the natal chart, there are significant players that represent the father. The first one would be the sun. If you have an afflicted sun, which means that maybe you have something like any planet that's opposing the sun, like Saturn or Mars, Pluto, Neptune, any of those planets, Uranus, they can bring about some oppositions between you and the father, depending on the planet. That would showcase what is the opposition and what it is that you need to overcome. Other significators in the chart would be Jupiter. I have a video that I'll link here, and that is Jupiter is the husband in classical Hindu astrology, and in my psychological opinion, Jupiter is also the father. And so what Jupiter would represent are the teachings of the father, the influence of the father, therefore what a woman would be kind of subconsciously looking for when it comes to a husband. And if Jupiter is afflicted as well, if Jupiter is square by, well, Jupiter square by Saturn can actually be a pretty decent aspect, because Jupiter and Saturn actually work very well together. Check out my Messiah Seeds video on that. But Jupiter still squared by Saturn could represent maybe a very, hard, loving father, somebody who wanted you to be ambitious, who had great ideals for you, and maybe you learning how to work up to achieving those ideals, right? So other things would be Jupiter squared any of the other planets as well, like Uranus and Mars, Pluto. Uranus and Pluto and Neptune are usually generational planets, but that's why they actually work with the father issue, because it is sort of an ancestral generational thing that sometimes you are coming into conflict with. So in your natal chart, if you're just looking at your natal chart, any of those generational planets that are opposing Jupiter would also showcase that. Also squares, so I didn't mention that with the sun, squares to the sun would also represent that as well. Something else to look for in the chart for more significance on what is going on with your daddy issues would be the ninth house, because the ninth house is representative of Jupiter, Sagittarius, the father's teachings. If you have any sort of planets in the ninth house that are in contrast to the zodiac that it is in, meaning that the planet is in a zodiac that is like it's fall, like it's opposite sign, or if a planet is just goes to sleep in that zodiac sign, then in the ninth house it would showcase how you could have issues with the father's teaching, because the father is sometimes your guru, the first teacher in regards to male energy, and that could also showcase in the chart. I forgot to mention Chiron. Chiron in squares to the sun, opposition to the sun, squares to Jupiter, and opposition to Jupiter, and or also found in the ninth house, could also be a significator of daddy's issues and give you insight on what is going on. And I would also say that the zodiac, that is ruled by the sun, which is Leo, would also showcase some daddy issues. So if you have a planet in Leo that is not very harmonious, like for instance Uranus in Leo, which would probably not be anything that you would probably find in this generation, but Saturn and Leo as well. Those could be significant of planets in Leo that aren't, necessarily happy to be there. It brings down the joy, kind of. There can be a little bit of a somberness and maybe some very unhappy moments with the father, or father influence. Um, Also, you can find if the sun is placed in certain houses, the house that I know it to shine very well if it's in Pisces, but not so much in other zodiac signs, and maybe not even in Pisces sometimes, but in the 12th house, the sun in the 12th house can sometimes signify feeling like they are ignored um, by the father, or maybe just overburdened by the father, so they aren't necessarily going by their own accord, and they might have difficulty in finding their own identity because it's so kind of like dissipated in the 12th house. So it's very hard to really craft identity sometimes when you have the sun in the 12th house. You're easily mutable and changing your viewpoints, your identity, depending on what the influences could be. So those would be the significators that I would recommend when dealing with daddy issues. And I would like for any of you, if you're interested in learning more about overcoming any sort of conflict with family members, including the father, you would want to check out my new course that I'm rolling out, and it is called Building a Family Powerhouse. It's really dope. It's brand spanking new, so it is at a discounted price, and I will be looking for your feedback after you take the course to make it even better. And this is something that I'm passionate about, but also looking to bring my knowledge and my experience into action and application into improving life. These are the techniques that I use in order to improve my relationships with my family members, and it's all in a quick mini course. So check that out in the link below, and there'll be more info as we go. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is your girl, Karina Dean, aka Eye of Karina. I'm signing off. Peace and love.